All right, we're back with another episode of the Northwest Property Podcast. I'm Tony Dunham. I am the co-founder of Mosaic Studio and your host for the podcast. Today we have Kevin Hanna with Lions Capital. So
Thanks.
welcome,
Yeah.
welcome, Kevin.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you. We've had some really good conversations over the last month or so. And, you know, a lot of this podcast is around real estate and agents and all that type of stuff. But there's a key component we've been missing. And I'm really excited to talk about some money and some strategies and resources you have. So give us a quick introduction.
Yeah. No, well, one, thanks for having me. It's always nice to be able to, you know, try to educate any way possible and kind of go through that. Born and raised in the Northwest, actually in Oregon. Went to school in University of San Diego, actually where I started my kind of love for real estate. My junior year, I started working in residential real estate in California. So
nice.
I'm the youngest of five, and everyone's like, no, you're not staying there. So I ended up coming back. I actually studied in, finance and real estate and even marketing when I was there. So I loved it. But I always wanted to start the career early. So I came back, and then I started a wholesale mortgage company and founded that, and where I worked with a lot of other mortgage companies, right? So they take the originations and small banks and credit unions. And I just love seeing a process and trying to make it better. Mm-hmm. And so I really cut my teeth kind of in the back end of that, and then kind of worked forward. And then I spent about 14, 15 years being the president of a local mortgage company. And then it was just kind of decided to kind of fly my own way and start my own company at Lions Capital Mortgage that we're locally owned. So
that's awesome.
What a journey.
Yeah. Well, first of all, going to college in San Diego, I had to be a blast.
Yeah, that didn't suck.
I mean,
my father called it the country club.
I love it there. We were just there on vacation, and I'm like, why don't we live here?
Yeah,
this is the most beautiful place.
If I didn't have family, if I didn't think about maybe raising the kids here, but it was tough. And I was actually doing residential real estate in La Jolla. Oh yeah. So that was another level, right?
Yeah.
So, but I just loved it. I loved everything real estate. I love building wealth. I love focusing on that aspect. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it's really funny. So that made me think of something. When we were there, I'm always interested in different ways, obviously, to market things in different regions and stuff. But I haven't seen a lot of it here. But they have, like, I went to this restaurant, and there's a real estate office next door, and they've got this big, you know, screen where you can like touch the screen and look at houses and stuff. Totally. And I thought that was kind of cool and interesting. But the prices are like all over the place. Like I was looking at this board, and I'm like, wait, this is a little shack.
Right.
You know, and it's $1 million or whatever. Right. And then there's like this nice looking house. And it's like, I don't know anything about the industry there or the market, but it's definitely different. And it's different how they market.
Absolutely. 100%. What's interesting is, you know, most people, especially on the real estate side, you know, they focus on the interest rate, they focus on the payment, right? But don't really realize that that's actually an appreciating asset. Since like 1987, the average home prices has increased 4.7%, like on average. Okay. Some years 1, some years 11. But if you think about that over that time, and remember in the 80s, interest rates were like 16, 17%. So that's wild to think about, you know, that. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then you and your sister is in real estate as well.
She is.
Anybody else in the family in real estate?
My brother is. Obviously, we work together. He's on the mortgage side, but my father was always invested in real estate. So my dad's father owned a little grocery store in Southeast Portland. Yeah. So it was awesome coming over here, cool. Learning that and going through that. So he's always kind of just taught us to invest in those type of items. Yeah. And even when I was in San Diego, he helped us kind of buy a condo that we ended up selling it for double by the time I was a junior.
That's awesome.
And just learn the process.
Yeah.
And it paid for college, which was cool.
And like the entrepreneurial spirit and like understanding those things. That's something that, like, my grandfather owned his own business, and I learned a lot of things that I didn't even know I was learning at the time.
Right.
But it's great for me to pass that down to my kids too. Yeah. And, you know, like, everybody always tells you all these scary things. That's 100%. What you hear. It's similar to probably your industry.
Absolutely. What's interesting is I host a Financial Peace University class actually for the community. And I do it actually for a lot of business owners for their employees.
Yeah.
And it's a 9-week course, and we're in actually week 8 now this next week. And we really talk about investing and what that looks like. And I actually took my 20-year-old daughter and I said, hey, look at the power of compounding interest. Look at the power of, you're 20 years old, what it looks like for the next 10 years. Just put a little money away. Do that from an investment. So I love that, and knowing that time's on your side, learning about compounding interest and going through that. That's why I love it.
Yeah, I'd be interested actually, because I did take that. It's probably been like 12 years ago now, and it's just like anything else. It starts slipping away,
100%.
and I'm not in a bad spot by any means, but I'd like to just brush up on it, and because it's so easy for us to get into credit cards, and
100%.
and then there's like, I mean, medical debt is a whole other thing that this, that our system's kind of wild about.
It's a zoo.
There's just so many things that people don't realize, and you're getting thrown offers left and right. I mean, it's interesting how our culture has, changed and evolved, but all those type of things are always around, and there's always new, shiny things. And we all want things, right?
Absolutely.
So,
well, we are marketed to be in debt.
Yeah,
honestly,
totally.
And even when we're in debt, we're marketed to get another card to get us out of debt,
right?
And to further to go down that hole. So when you want to go the opposite direction, you're kind of like a salmon swimming upstream.
Yeah,
honestly. So and you don't realize that everywhere you turn, you're marketed to that.
Yeah,
and I think it's credit card debt's the highest it's ever been, $1.7 trillion. And so, in our world, we see a lot of individuals trying to see if they can help them get out of debt or use the equity in their home, because that's the biggest time from now to what it looks like. I get the question, like, is this like 2008? Is this like the market that was then? And it's not, because now people actually have equity in their homes, where then they didn't. And that's what caused a lot of the problems. So,
well, and that course is really interesting too, because it does talk a little bit, from what I remember, about like, you do have to still build credit.
Yeah.
Like, credit is a thing, but it's hard. It's a slippery slope, right? Because you open up a card to do that, and then you don't have any knowledge to back that, and then all of a sudden it's 20 grand and you're paying 19%, and you're like, even if I pay the minimum, I'll never get out of this.
It creates good disciplines, I would say.
Yeah.
And it says, honestly, they advise actually to never use credit and just use debit on everything, and to really go down that path. But it does extremes. Like our last night's class was talking about saving for your 401k and what that looks like.
Yeah.
And realizing they wanted you to have about 15%. And I went through it with a lot of people, and they're like, I try to do some here, but my income fluctuates. And I was like, what's great about this is it creates a baseline. 15% is your baseline. You're going to go below it. You're going to go above it. But I think most of us will always drift, right? We'll drift away from our priorities, whether it's in our health or anything, right? But the problem is, it's really bad when you don't know where you need to go back to, or the baseline. And this establishes that baseline. Yeah. To know we're kind of going to go above and beyond it. So that's what I really like, is it kind of gives you those parameters to live within.
Yeah. So. Well, I'm sure it's really fun for you, because you're very passionate about this and helping people and helping the community, and you have all the tools and things to help, like, retell a story, because it is really intimidating for people. Even a person like me, like, I have good credit, I have my finances in order. But when you go to buy a house or something, it's just, it's overwhelming, because there's all these other pieces of the puzzle. It's not like it's a separate process. It's all together. And sometimes, you are put in a weird position, because you have to be you're the good guy or the bad guy, right? Like,
life happens.
Like, they see this home and they're like, this is beautiful, I want this. And then you're like, well, you're actually looking at this home.
Right. Yeah. Come over here. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's probably interesting too. Like the differentiation between people, like where they think they are and where they actually are, is probably pretty wild to see on the back end.
I sat in a room amongst, because we do a lot with local parishes and schools and that, but we also do it for a lot of employers that want to help their employees get into a better financial wellness picture. Yeah. Because, if they're not saving well, if they're not focusing on their budget, they'll leave for another 10 grand annually, even if you're paying them whatever. Yeah. So this actually shows that when you stop making all these payments, you're actually getting a raise by getting money in. Totally. And what was interesting, I sat amongst this group of employees, and we asked them, there's about 60 of them. They make anywhere from $70,000 to $90,000 a year. And I said, how many of you think that you can afford a home? Not a single one of them raised their hand, except for the one that owned a home. Right. And you can. And the media tells us we can't, just like we're getting marketed to our credit card. And a lot of these things say that. And that's the part I love, is not only helping people see that there is hope, whether it's towards home ownership or whether it's just towards controlling your finances to get you to a spot maybe later. Right. I just love seeing that kind of journey, because we've all stumbled through it. We've all done things we shouldn't, but it's just a matter of, are you doing the disciplines now to try to get out of it and to leave your family in a better spot? My dad always raised us like, I want you better than me. Well, I want my kids better than me. Totally. So, it's not a matter of my sins of the past. It's a matter of what I'm doing now about it. So. Yeah. Well, I love that idea too. Like from our point of view in our industry, in our business, like we want to be disruptive in a way to provide more value and be a partner for people. And it's almost unheard of in our industry. And you're the same way. It's like, there's all these bad, ideas around this. It's like
selling cars or something. People,
100%.
it's got all these bad connotations to it.
Yeah.
But if you're there to disrupt by, providing value, then everybody's just shocked by it right away. I mean, we've seen that a lot just because I don't operate transactionally.
Absolutely.
I'm here for you no matter what you need.
Yeah.
Obviously not everybody's a good fit for everybody, but the people that do see the value are like blown away by it, and I feel that with everything we've been talking about.
100%. And I appreciate our partnership and a lot of things we do too, because like even that financial peace class I'm teaching, we're not paid for that. That's
Right.
it's time out of the day and it's a value add, but it's the right thing to do. And me and all my teammates and everybody I've worked with all are about the mindset of helping others and knowing that, you'll be paid tenfold down the road.
Right.
And I'm a big believer in that and how we operate our business, how we operate ourselves, and how we give back to the community. That has to be there foundationally, because I think it's gone. A lot of people are caring about themselves only in today's world. And we can affect a change in other people. So.
Well, and that's cool too, because you're right in the heart of Lake Oswego.
Yeah.
And, from all accounts, if you look at Lake Oswego traditionally in the past, it's a bubble of influence and money and wealth and power and all these things, right? But I think that there's a big change happening in society that, if you're right there, you can disrupt that and make it a more meaningful community for everybody, all walks of life in that community. Because there are people that live there that aren't super wealthy and don't drive Ferraris or whatever,
People that are struggling. There's people that are, and I love to disrupt assumptions.
Right.
Assumptions of myself, assumptions what our clients are expecting us to respond with because of whoever they've engaged with.
Yeah.
I tell our team to never get behind the assumption, to realize that we can actually serve people by understanding their story and where they're at. Just because they're in Lake Oswego doesn't mean they're thriving.
Yeah.
Just because they're in Milwaukee doesn't mean they're not thriving.
Right.
So, it really is a matter of understanding and taking the time to listen to learn and kind of learn to listen a little bit, than just making these assumptions and then you're kind of just talking at people, not really actually listening to what they need.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like anything else. It takes a lot of passion and pride and understanding of like what you want to represent. And I've found that in my life through when I was managing people. It takes a lot of extra time and effort and like customized coaching to really dive in and be a good coach and a leader for people. But not everybody wants to do that, know, and not everybody wants to. Some people just want to sell as many houses quickly as they can, and other people really care about like the longevity of that relationship and through different generations, and they've sold their son a house, and they and that's a cool thing for me,
and that's okay, right?
Yeah, totally.
Both of those, what most people don't think, like I'm an avid believer, I don't have to, in order to elevate myself or my team or my company, I don't have to put down others. Like everybody's got a spot and everybody's got a market.
Totally.
And we may not be the appetite for everybody, but there is a need for that. But I'm just an avid believer of serving first and then realize it'll come second. And I've learned that from what my father's instilled in me, through all the Catholic educations and boards he's been on and all those things in the community. It's just, I want to put my head on the pillow and know that I did everything I could at that.
Totally. And there's so many cool resources out there in the financial space that people don't necessarily know of. No. I was listening to a podcast yesterday and I can't remember the company, the name, I should have wrote it down, but there's one that is a debit card for kids that shows them interest, and there's all these different features to it.
Yeah.
And that's something really cool that I want to do for my kids. It's like that teaches them really early. You still have kind of, you get to get some oversight on it, but it teaches them from a young age, like how money actually works. It's not just like, you don't go to the store and it doesn't just happen, right?
I need $50, Dad. I'm buying something. The tree here.
Yeah. So that's a cool tool as well, because you can offer those type of services as well. And that's something that's unexpected value to your clients.
Yeah.
The other one that I always look at is there's another podcast called All the Hacks. And that guy used to be like a financial analyst guy, and he decided that he really loved travel. And so he started this podcast and this whole network and website, and it shows you how to leverage points on credit cards. So like how to trade points from Delta to Alaska, and like how to get double bonuses for signups and stuff. So there's so many cool tools out there that you might not know about. And then he's got a bunch of little travel hacks. Like if you call, a certain person and say this certain thing and leverage your status, if you will, like IHG or whatever, all those big Hilton honors and all that stuff. This guy's a genius with it. I've learned a ton from it, but some of it's like over my head, because it's just like, it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like, teaching our kids to balance a checkbook, but nobody really has even checks anymore.
Right.
So
I know.
getting them in that zone. I mean, heck, I even took my son to start making sure he's doing bottles.
Right.
And like, oh, Dad, I get money for this?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wait, what?
Totally.
One thing about common sense, right? It's anything but common. Like that's what's happening. But now seeing it, now he's just like checking it out, seeing what's happening and doing it. But I love those educations at that age because they need it. And today's generation is so in their phones. They're in such a judgmental state of like, don't like, just getting their heads up to a little bit of the world, knowing that they're going to be in a better spot by just doing a few disciplines is neat to see.
Yeah. I'm actually like really hopeful that maybe something will change where people will kind of revert from technology a little bit, even though I'm in a technology adjacent field. But like I was on a little walk, a little nature hike the other day, and I walked by a family and there was 7 of them and they were all on their phones in a line walking by me while we're outside in nature. And I'm like, that is just, and I'm nervous about it because I've got 2 little kids and eventually their friends will have phones and blah, blah, blah. But I'm hopeful that maybe something will be a reset to like enjoy life as it's supposed to be. It's really scary.
There's so much beauty in life, and there's just also just some socialization.
Yeah.
Like, I remember my father, he was a corporate estate tax attorney. We'd go to dinners for 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
We didn't have any devices or anything. And now I try to take my kids for dinner. It's like, hey, I'm bored. I'm like, we're like 5 minutes in.
Right.
Yeah. So, but just trying to get that a little bit and put the head up a little bit to kind of see what's around them is nice. And or at least know how to like look somebody in the eye or shake their hand or call them by their last name, and sir. So, or ma'am. So
exactly.
It's just some of those
And I've
things.
noticed that too. It's like with the hard part about that is like you have to lead by example, and so then you got to put your phone away.
100%.
And a lot of people, I've seen some changes. A lot of people are on like do not disturb all the time, type thing, or they put their phones away. And I need to be better about that. But otherwise, we're gonna have to like invest in some spine surgeons because everybody's necks are gonna be like totally screwed up. Yeah. People are already getting like the hump neck. Okay, so you started this business a year and a half ago.
Yeah, a little over. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we're like on almost the same timeline. And how'd you come up with the name?
Gosh, so it should be 23 years now. I've been doing this, and it was interesting. When I was thinking about starting my own company, I looked at all the general things, like because some of my core convictions and moral values are like honesty, integrity, and so I had like honest mortgage, integrity, and my 9 or 10-year-old son at the time, we had a list like 30 names, and he looks at me, he's like, Dad, if you actually put the name in the name, that doesn't actually make you trustworthy. I'm like, it's like Baby Yoda or something, right? Like, you articulated what I was struggling with, that I wasn't like loving it.
Yeah.
And, I'm born and raised Catholic, but, and so a big part was, I wanted to be a protector of people's capital. I wanted to take all my experiences and not replicate the sins of the past. Cause I'm a big about making a mistake, but don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to start the company. And, like the Bible says, be as bold as a lion, and only the wicked flee, like Proverbs says. It's really focusing on the contrast between the righteous and the wicked, and the wicked have kind of the anxiety and the stress and the fear, where the righteous are courageous and they're bold. And I wanted to have that type of signia. And I also wanted to have something in the mortgage space that was a little bit different and unique. And to see the icon of a lion, I think everybody can resonate with the strength of that. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about the lion to me is it's the king of the jungle, but it's not the fastest. It's not the biggest.
Yeah.
But it has the action, has the courageousness. It has that. So it's recognized at that. And when people are talking about making their largest investment in their lives in buying a home, I want them to feel the confidence of having that. And for me, the whole strategy is about whether you use us or not, we want to be a resource for them. We want to be a resource to make sure they're getting the best deal. And we can all sit around the dinner table and talk about the interest rate we got, but nobody knows how much we spent for it.
Right.
In our business, transparency is not what exists.
Yeah.
Right? So that was a big part of kind of making that statement of Lions Capital for us to have, and just really get people that are aligned in that type of principles and mindset. And again, talk about experience and utilize that. Because I truly believe that a man with experience is never at the mercy of a man with an argument. So I'm taking all the battle scars of what we've gone through to try to learn and educate others where not to step. And we're learning every day. This is a unique environment. I think over 44% of people in the real estate and mortgage side did not renew their license going into this year. Like that's tremendous. That's a lot.
Right.
When you think about that. And so there's 1.5 million realtors, according to the National Association of Realtors. And from January to June of this year, 2024, all of those that had a listing did not sell one, not a single one. 74% of that 1.5 million did not sell a single listing. So when you think about like, what is this market and what does that look like? I viewed a lot of those items, and everyone's like, why are you starting a company in a down market? There's like something wrong with you. And I just view that if you come and do the right thing, you can capture market share. You can do things right. You can gain things. You can create and differentiate yourself more than when everybody's doing everything great. Because it's almost a commodity at that point, right?
Exactly.
So that was a big part of kind of the journey behind. It was a lot of thought to kind of get to this point, a lot of mental aptitude to say, am I ready? Is this what it looks like? But I got people that I'm surrounded that are just phenomenal humans. And some people I've worked with for 16 years. So I just wanted something that the community was a little bit different.
Right. Yeah. You're like, I'm not doing it because it's easy or popular. I'm doing it because I believe in it.
Yeah. Going to get a job and working behind a desk. I mean, not that that's easy. You're providing for your family, but there's a reason why there's only certain individuals that go for as a business owner. I mean, you can know that too.
Yeah,
so
exactly. It's I don't know. It's crazy. I kept trying to pretend for so long, and I'm just not good at pretending.
Right.
And so I had to do something different and be disruptive. And now I'm just like totally fulfilled.
Yeah.
And it's not, again, same thing. It's not easy. It's not like it's glamorous every day. Everybody thinks that we just pull out our cameras and, you know,
100%.
So,
well, it's not like we had a bunch of venture capital that started the company like it's us, but it's nice to know that you're making decisions that you know it's right. You know that you're going to make bad ones, and your team or your wife will remind you, but you know that you'll not make them again, and you can do right, and you can continue to evolve it. And like, you can pivot the company right now to do what's right. Always. And so that's a fun part of not only carrying the weight, but also knowing that there is a lot of, enjoyment behind it. I mean, especially, holidays, you're like, there's no holidays anymore.
Yeah.
like we're on all the time. Right. And that's a good feeling, because I always felt that anyways. Right. So even as I had part ownership and other things in the past, having this now I feel like I would only do it if I felt I could differentiate and offer more value to my customer. If I didn't do that, then I'm either just pounding my chest and saying the ego, because I got to have it on my business card, right?
Yeah.
But I know that it can enact change a little bit better by doing this way. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really important too, like what you said, it is malleable and flexible, and you can readjust and make it whatever you want it to be. Like you don't have to be stuck in like the same old mindsets that other companies are, right? Because it's yours. And it takes a lot of mental strength to be able to make decisions and pivot. But if you do it right, it works, and you're ahead of the curve. And I found that a lot as well. But yeah, I remember I used to always be off during the holidays, but I was always like just waiting to come back, because I knew that there's big goals, like, oh, you sold 6 million. Well, now it's 8. And it's like, okay, well, we barely got 6 out last year, and I can't even enjoy the holidays, because as soon as January 1st hits, I'm like pounding the pavement, you know? So what have you found that's been a good tool for you? Because when people come in, they have this preconceived idea of what they're walking into. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's great to have referrals, because you'll have partners that refer with the right, kind of setting them up for you. Yeah. But how do you break down those walls? I mean, because you have to ask good questions and break down the original wall, if you will, like to get past that.
Yeah. The biggest thing is just communication and talking to people. And now I'd say more than ever, just getting them comfortable even enough to come talk. I think everybody is so worried that, I took out a credit card and, my credit's bad, or this is this. And that's okay. Like, we lend to non-credit score individuals. And I think the biggest thing for us is we're a financial strategist, not just a mortgage company. Like, we talk about financial strategy. We talk about long-term goals. We talk about what does it make sense? And if it doesn't make sense to do it now, this is not about getting you in to refinance you. This is not about, this is setting up your prioritization. I mean, most people don't have a financial planner. Some people, they don't think they make enough to have a financial planner. And so I think we really try to go down that path with individuals and just educate about this is what it looks like. Because, what I've heard over the last 12 to 18 months is, I'm waiting for for it to go down. I'm waiting for interest rates to go down. Well, I was like, what does that mean? And I'm with you, but let's look at it. And let's look at it transparently, because let's not make an emotional decision. Let's let the data drive us. If the data shows us, here's what this is at current market, here's where your interest rate is. Do you know that when those interest rates drop, you're going to actually have appreciation values go up? And that same home that would be today $100,000 more with a 1% lower in payment would be almost the identical payment today.
Yeah.
So, and then you're going to be in a bidding war. You're going to have that. And it still doesn't matter because we talked about affordability, right? People, well, what can I approve? What am I afford? The number one question I ask is, what are you comfortable paying?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say 9 times out of 10, most people haven't even thought about that.
Right.
Because they're kind of chasing that, right?
Yeah.
Well, I got a limit of 20,000 on my credit card, right? Everybody focuses on the max. And so we really try to just educate them about this is where it is in a way that isn't, okay, now you got to make a decision. You're wasting my time. Like this next one, like we really sit down and really go through it with them. So hopefully they feel confident, or they come to us. We created a program called Lion Shield Advantage. And the biggest thing with that is we want people to feel comfortable come to us, no obligation, no commitment, just have a conversation.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what are you seeing? Or if you got a quote somewhere, we'll look at it. Like over 72% of people that get pre-approved with a lender do not shop. They get pre-approved, they don't look. And so we're educating our real estate agents like, look, a lot of these individuals have 5 to 10 grand in earnest money. Are they willing to get a second opinion from somebody that just wants to make sure they're getting the best deal?
Mm-hmm.
And what does that look like? It doesn't mean to undercut it. It doesn't mean to do that. Just make sure. I mean, I can't tell how many people saw this shiny rate that they loved. Rocket Mortgage does it all the time. Nobody knows what they're paying to get that.
Right.
Or even if they should pay. Are you going to be in the home? Are you asking questions? Should you use points? Is there temporary buy down options? Nobody's strategizing with them about that. I think that's a common misconception of they're tackling this. Am I okay with that without looking how it affects their long-term goals or objectives?
Right.
And I think we really sit down and go through that, even if it doesn't mean that's going to yield a transaction for us. Because we try to just do the right thing.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point too. I mean, that's the same way people are like that. They're like, I want to make a lot of money or I want to be successful. It's like, well, what does that mean?
Right.
Like is it a number value? And if that is, then like, let's dive a little deeper.
Right.
For me, it's like success is measured by if I can walk around in my day-to-day life, not think about things I want to buy that are just like necessities and things. And then I like it where it's a little bit of tension on the line. If I want to buy something that's a little bit outside of my budget, I have to figure out how bad I want that. And then I can incentivize myself to go get it. Yeah. Right. And that's what success looks like for me. But some people are just, they're in this mentality of, I need to make, $100,000. Right. Well, why? To tell people that or for
100%.
And that could work for you or not. But I think it's more about breaking down those barriers and defining it. Right. And like you said, your interest rate might go down, but then your property value, the cost goes up, the price is up now. Now what?
Right.
Now
most people are like, well, your mortgage lender, of course, should say that. Like, no, it's the data. Yeah. And I just want you to see it. And most importantly, I want you comfortable. The last thing we want you to be is house poor.
Yeah.
The last thing we ever want, but also know that when you are renting, 100% of that is going to somebody else.
Totally.
100%.
Yeah.
And so what does that even look like? And you mentioned a great word, budget. Most people don't have a budget.
Right.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
I always tell individuals or even people on my team when they don't feel like they're producing enough or doing any of that, I go, if everything we're doing is everything we could possibly do, then we should just go home because this probably isn't for us. But the fact that we have things that we know we need to improve upon, like that's our opportunity.
Right.
That's our opportunity from a customer coming in saying, hey, I need to work on this. I just want people to come in and either get pre-qualification, pre-approved, or understand where they're at and just talk about what it looks like for their friends and families. Because we see a lot of that in generational wealth. We see a lot of parents trying to tap into their equity to help make sure their families are set up. There's a lot of strategy that goes into it. And the good thing about it is this time has weeded out a lot of people that got into it during the unicorn years of the 2 to 3% rates. Right. And so you have people, because in that same stat, I think there's about, of that stat that did over, I think it's 40 transactions. On the real estate side, it's like 366 people in the entire United States on the real estate side.
Right.
So you have kind of the top that are performing because they've done their brand well. They've been engaging. They're doing the right things. And so it's kind of weeded that out. So people should feel more comfortable having that conversation, but they're most likely usually just go to a guy they know or a gal they know. And I encourage them to at least have a conversation about that and establish a budget, because we focus a lot on like zero-based budgets. And everyone's like, well, what's that? Well, you want what you bring in to almost zero out what your expenses are.
Right.
Or to your point, at least I know then I'm off.
Yeah.
So I know I need to get back. That's that baseline we kind of talked about. So, yeah.
And also, I mean, the other thing is if you identify those lifestyle value reward things, like if I am renting a house and I want to actually own a house, right? if you've identified those things through the fact finding kind of building value process, then you should probably be tight for a couple months when you first get in your house until you understand how that all looks, because it's not ever exactly like it's supposed to look on the backside, but you know that you're rewarded with all those things that you've identified with the right partner that helps you justify that, to tighten down a little bit and understand, we don't need to go finance cheeseburgers for dinner, right?
Yeah, totally.
You don't have to go to dinner every Friday night. I know you just did that before where you're renting and now you're paying more and you got to make some meals at home. Yeah. And I remember that from that Dave Ramsey thing. He was like, people are out there financing cheeseburgers. Yeah. You're paying 20% on a cheeseburger.
Well, it's hilarious to me. I see so many individuals talk about Dave and they're like, either I like him or I don't like him, but I'm under the concept of everybody can, I hopefully universally agree that when you're not in debt versus you're, in debt, the weight is burden off. You mentioned earlier, it's like you almost want to be unburdened by those things, knowing that I can take care of my family, knowing that I can do these items. And it's more than just making more money. Heck, when I made minimum wage when I was a kid, I think I was less stressed than I am making more money, right? So it was because my expenses were low. It wasn't because of the money that was coming in. Yeah. And so I think just having that conversation is critically important, and a lot of people to navigate the assumptions of what's today, getting something transparent. A lot of people shop. There's also not a loyalty in that because they think they're getting a better deal. Mm-hmm. And I just care about them getting whatever that is or affirming that it's not. And I think just having that conversation is critical.
And there's still, there's always going to be challenges and different entities that don't speak well to each other. And there's a lot of things like with this house, when we bought it, we got a, really good interest rate. The price was fair, but what I didn't foresee or know would happen is that then they reassessed the value once I bought it and I got slammed with taxes. Yeah. And so those things will happen. And, being upfront and honest with people, like there are possibilities out there. Don't get scared by it. Just know that that could happen. And that happened to me and I was kind of pissed off for a while, but I'm like, I get it now. I understand why that happened. Right. Now, if it happens again, I might have to put in a form and 100%. Talk to somebody at the county office and be like, how many times are we going to do this? 100%. Is it going to go for 30 years? Every year you're going to do this to me? So there are things that are, just part of the game. But I think, again, finding the right partners is the best because they can help break it down and make it tangible for the end user and the client to make it a meaningful experience instead of like, all right, we're at the house, never talk to that guy again.
Yeah. Well, it's like, we even say too, with us, you work with us beyond the transaction. Like you're kind of stuck with us. I'm sorry. But because we're going to check in with you, we're going to do annual financial wellness reviews. We're going to go through, are you in a good state? When you move, did you know you need to, change your address and the utilities and maybe the locks and basic things that like just want to try to help. Or if you need something, you see something, like call us, like it's okay. Right. And so I think that's a big part of, or we'll monitor your interest rate if it does go down, if it's meaningful. But I want to make sure, and what is meaningful to you? Right. $100, $50, $200? Like, what is that? So you got to have those conversations with people. And I think that's what you kind of continue to do. You try to do the right thing. And most people view that as like a saying or that, but it's the actions. It's you have to see it and experience it. You have to see what we're trying to do. I'm very involved in the community as well. Again, learning from my father and what he did. I'm on the Oregon Zoo board. I'm on my Ardea Lake School finance and president of the school board. I'm helping we actually set up the Lake Oswego Police Foundation and the Beaverton Police Foundation. We're finishing now. I'm on the Dornbecker Survivorship Program. And so I spend time in those areas to just, through my experiences, can offer from my background and help. And I think that's a big part of doing things in the community that we live, work, and worship. Like those are big things. And I want to make sure that other people are helped and with nothing to expect in return. Right. But just trying to do the right thing. Yeah. I think is important. And again, I think it's kind of a lost thing that most people don't do.
Yeah. I don't know why. It's hard, right? It
takes energy.
Yeah. People don't want to do hard things. But the benefit of those different activities is huge. Yeah. I'm on the board of a group that we get together. There's about 20 of us. I've been on the board for 5 years. It's called the Bridge City Guild. And it's basically like, it's funny. It's been around for 20 years now. One of my friends helped start it when he was getting out of college. Nice. And he was like, well, I'm out of college now. I still want to hang out with all my frat buddies. And how do I do that? And she's like, well, what if we start doing charity events and we get together? So we get together once a month. We formulate, these charity events. We do poker tournaments, tap takeovers, charity runs, fun runs, stuff like that. But it's been super cool. And it's like, it's opened my eyes a lot to the community, and there's so much need out there. And if you can meet people where they are and make a difference, it's just so fulfilling. And it just helps me understand the world better. I feel like every time I go travel, I come back with this buzz of like knowledge and experiences, and then it slowly fades away and you get stuck in the grind. But if you can do things in your community that you're interacting in a different way and being of value in any way, whether that's like, feeding people, or it's, just being out there talking to them and asking them about their life, I think that's huge. And that's been a big benefit for me. And then the nonprofit I opened up last year has been really special to our family as well. But what I've noticed too, what we're talking about is, as you get older and you start acquiring different things and taking on these different pieces of the puzzle, it becomes complicated to manage it all. I mean, even managing a nonprofit is like way harder than I thought it would be.
100%.
And it's just paperwork I'm looking at that I don't understand. It could be in a different language as far as I'm concerned, So having someone on your side that's like, oh, this is what this means in layman's terms, it's a big benefit.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, it's the paperwork, it's the surrounding yourself with people that are better than you. I mean, honestly, it's like if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Like I thrive by the feedback we get with that, and whatever I can help in areas is just what we try to do. But writing the bylaws and making sure all of their intentions are set up for good. Yeah. Right. I mean, I could just donate money and put my name in lights and be fine. I could go home, be with my kids, but that doesn't fulfill me. Like it fulfills me to help others. And it's nice to see, especially the Blue and others that deserve that help. Mm-hmm. And the biggest part of why we do it too is, we also focus on setting them up for life. And because a lot of those individuals, they get hurt or they no longer there, they don't have medical benefits and stuff after.
Totally.
And they spent their life in it. So like we want the foundation to help long-term and focus on raising items towards that. Because if they need, vests or anything like that, that's different. They have the money. The community supports them extremely well. So, and again, but that takes time to kind of understand the need and really go through that. But it's extremely rewarding.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, we're going to take a quick break for a commercial, and then we'll be back. I just took some notes. I got some things I want to talk about on the backside, but we'll just take a quick break here. I don't know how this is for you, because you do kind of have your flag in the ground on certain things. But for us, it's like we could do food, wine. I'm not doing weddings, by the way. If anybody out there sees this, I'm not shooting your wedding. I can't handle that, because it's just the amount of work for that doesn't actually pay off.
And it's such a high emotion event too. It's like,
I mean, Alex and I did one wedding, but it's really hard to for me, I haven't done this long enough where I can grab my camera and quickly adjust. I need to have my things structured and lined up. Like I look at my lines on my photos, sometimes forever it feels like, because there's always little things, and I'm not that good yet.
Oh, that makes sense.
And honestly, even people are like, whoa, wedding photographers get paid a lot. I'm like, yeah, but they do 8 hours of work and then probably 12 or 15, 20 hours on the backside. Oh, and then you're just hoping that someone's not upset on that. They're like, well, I don't look good or something. And you're like, well, that's what you look like in real life. You're like, 100%. Well, I look better, I guess, than because this is a nice camera. So
I should connect you guys with Bridal Bliss too.
Yeah.
Not for the bridal, because she does a lot of other events.
Oh, yeah.
Or an engagement, the guy flew him on a boat and did this. That was cool. He rented out this. That would be cool from, I assume, footage of stuff like that.
I'm really I'm really focused on I really want to do stuff in wine country.
Yeah.
I really enjoy wine and the whole culture and everything about it. And I have some friends that I've talked to about it. I just haven't lined it up. But that's kind of one of the big things I really want to focus on is, of course, we have our real estate arm, but then there's probably two other areas that we could kind of differentiate ourselves and divide, put divisions on the company. And wine country is one of the big ones for me. Yeah. And then cars would be awesome, obviously.
It'd be kind of cool as we talk about our stuff, obviously not on the podcast, but is almost a story about what's lendable. Mm-hmm. And then because certain winery, is vacant land, mobile home, other stuff that maybe you don't think is that, I said somebody, you can actually lend on that. I'm like, yeah, actually we can. So
That is really cool.
it'd be super cool to kind of tie that visual aspect to the connection,
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many things in your industry that are just not maybe popular enough or whatever to
It's true.
the mass media doesn't cover. But like Chris was talking the other day about like how the seller can pay off a portion or all of the PMI if there's like an agreeable way to do that. And there's all these different funds you can move around and just kind of reorganize them, which is, I think it'd be cool if you could almost do like a version 2 of the financial piece where it's like a group of people that want to buy a house in a year, let's say. And there's probably tons of those people in there, but like you could have your own class on that. And like, what do you need to do now?
100%.
And the other thing I was thinking about too, like when I sold my first house, it was basically by accident. I mean, I got married when I was 24. I had remodeled the whole house and thought I was going to live there forever, not forever, but short-term forever in my 100%. Mind at that point. And it was a big deal for me because none of my friends had bought a house and I really like cared about it. And I did all this stuff. And then I ended up getting divorced 4 years later. So I sold that house and then all of a sudden it's like, that's another thing in life that people don't realize. Like the power of money is wild.
Yeah.
And at that time it's like, okay, I slipped and fell into $100,000 out of nowhere. Right. And for me at 27 or whatever, that was like, it's not even that much money, but it's funny how people change. Like you change your mentality. All of a sudden you're like, oh, so like I like bought a boat and like all this stuff. I was like going to Vegas. I'm like, this is so stupid. Now I look back on it and I'm like, that was a good lesson, but money changes people
100%,
good or bad. Right.
It's temptations. It's there, you know what I mean? It makes you feel empowered almost. And and we do a lot of, we also do a lot of strategies with real estate agents on how to help them drive more clients to purchase the home. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, especially, what do they go to? They go to lowering the home price, where actually you could pay half of that probably and put people in a temporary buy down, and the seller can pay for that to then market the property at a 3.5 or 4.5, because the first temporary buy down, the seller pays for that.
Right.
So if you're like, okay, I'm going to refinance down the road, but I'm going to get in at 3 or 4 or 5 or 6% interest rate for the first couple of years. I don't pay for it. It makes your payment that.
Right.
And so like we've been doing, like I've had tons, and because again, the real estate agents love it because they get paid off of the sales price. We get paid off the loan amount, unfortunately, but it helps them instead of reducing that price that may not entice a lot of people. I mean, $100,000 less versus actually having a 2 to 3% lower interest rate is drastically different for a client. So we do a lot of strategies and a lot of things along those lines for agents too, to help them educate, to keep listings, bring creative ways to their sellers. Because we also work with a lot of agents that all they go after is expired listings, saying, hey, it costs you nothing to keep it on. Yeah. Here's what I can do to help you drive individuals for that. So I have a guy that does, I think he's done already 60 transactions year to date that like focuses on that. So there's some strategies that actually help people win.
Yeah.
So
pick up that ball and run with it.
100%.
I mean, it's like sitting there like someone zigged when they should have zagged and then they let it go.
Because we're too much, I think, on the lending side, we're too much in like a catcher's receiver's stance rather than we can actually be proactive and utilize what we've seen, our experiences, and go down that path to say this could actually entice individuals and help buyers,
It's just like anything else. I mean, people grow up in with totally different backgrounds and ways of life, and you operate based on what you have in your hard drive that's been created over years. But if you can really work hard to know that some of those things might not be good for what you want, it's just like therapy or whatever. It's like, that's how money goes, right? It's not, people think it's not fun to be like financially, responsible because it's
hard,
but it's actually more fun.
Yeah,
if you think about it, because you're just rearranging your lifestyle to get what you want for longevity versus short-term
100%
gain that was probably just something someone marketed to you.
100%.
I mean, we get bombarded. I always think it's crazy because I'll get these ads and I scroll past them. But then like every once in a while, I'm going to buy some stupid pants or a golf club. Or it's like, wow, it freaking got me. It's like repetitive stuff. And that's how our culture operates. But like for me, I think it's just creating an understanding of like what's important for you. And obviously things are different for me now than they were before, but and then how do I still reward myself by being, having something I could buy or whatever and utilize, but structure it in a way that makes sense. Like for me, I use this account called Acorns. You heard
Oh
of
yeah.
that?
Oh yeah.
And it's a cool thing because you could utilize that in a couple ways. If for people that don't know, you hook it up to your bank accounts, your debit, credit, however many cards you want or whatever you want, and it rounds up and then it puts it into a little separate piggy bank that you never really see until you need it. And it invests it, but you can take it out in a couple days, no fees, nothing.
Yeah.
And I use that for a secret piggy bank that I never look at. So if I spend $1.95, it puts 5 cents in there and da da da. But I can use that in two ways. If I go all year and I don't utilize those funds, like the other day I bought a golf bag. Well, I had money in there. I look at it, I got $1,000. All of a sudden, oh, cool, I can buy whatever I want and not talk to my wife about it or think about it, right? But what I could do, if I don't use that throughout the whole year or half the year, or whatever, I could take that money and put another payment on my mortgage, and then I could cut down my mortgage, and instead of a 30-year fix, I could knock it out in 15 just by having that system in place.
And that's a great educational tool we provide. We actually show individuals if they make, it quantifies up to one mortgage payment a year, additional mortgage payment, it'll reduce it about 6 to 7 years.
Yeah.
So if throwing a few $100s down towards the principal, then you can still refinance, you can do that, but it just accelerates everything. And so, whatever it takes to get you in that mindset to use that. But a lot of people don't think to apply that to a mortgage. They think that's just what it is, right?
Yeah.
But being unburdened by that is tremendous.
Right.
It's very impactful for people.
Yeah, I mean, because it's someday I'd love to have a house that I paid for outright.
100%.
And that's not as popular or as cool anymore. But whatever. But and honestly, like for me, when I think about that, I simplify it. I know that if I pay one extra mortgage payment a year, I'm going to start knocking it down. I don't know how it completely mathematically works out.
Right.
But I know enough to say I'm going to do it.
Absolutely.
I'm not a numbers guy.
Yeah, and certain individuals can even, a lot of people don't know, it depends on the investor and who delivers the loan, but they can do something called a recast, where they actually will recast your loan, usually once or twice during the life of your loan. They won't allow you to do it multiple times, to where, so if you got a loan for $500,000, so say over a few years you pay it down to $450, $400, and then you've chipped in on up. Now it's at $350.
Right.
Regardless of where interest rates are, sometimes they'll allow you to recast it. So your loan amount is now off of that $350. Which will then reduce your payment.
Right.
And extends it out, but at least allows you to kind of leverage that. So ask your mortgage provider, ask somebody to see, especially if you're doing a mortgage, is that an option? You know, you never know if you're going to fall into cash. I wouldn't make that to be the guiding force, but it's nice to know those, because we do a lot of clients are like, hey, I'm going to come into some money or inheritance or trust down the road. Will this be an option? And again, whether they deploy it or not, they're thinking a little bit further down the road. So
is that re-amortized based on your current rate, or is it based on the market rate?
It'll go off of it. There's two things. You can refinance and see what it is on a refinance to do it, or they'll just recast it and extend it out at what rate you had.
Oh, that's cool.
So there's multiple ways you can go about it.
Yeah. Because like this house, we're at 2.85. Like I'm not, this thing's mine forever.
Right.
I'm not getting rid of this.
Absolutely.
But you could have a situation where you want to adjust the payment to make it lower or whatever. But
and I mean, it depends on the investor that has that, whether they want, obviously they love you, you're not going anywhere. So people's going to, even though they're making less, they know that you're not going to probably get rid of that.
Yeah.
Unless a life event or things happen. We've seen a lot of people look at taking out additional funds once you do have equity on the home, and then looking at it as a blended rate, for that. So there are ways in which, you can still hold on to that, and access other funds.
Yeah. HELOCs and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
There's,
we do HELOCs, HELoans, which is actually a fixed rate,
that's nice.
home equity. And then there's also, just cash out refinances and running the gamut of that to see what that looks like for people. We've had a bunch of people didn't think they could even get it because they have 4 kids and the kids spend a lot, and they actually got out of their credit card debt by doing that. Cause they're like, I don't want to be unburdened. I want to be unburdened by that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a huge tool as well. I've utilized that before where, it wasn't even like, it doesn't have to be a crazy amount of debt.
No.
But if you're looking at a credit card that has 15 grand on it and 19%, it's going to be a lot to get you out of that, because you got there by not having the funds in the first place.
Absolutely.
So you could take out a HELOC, have that little separate piggy bank over here, and then you move all that over there.
Yeah.
You're paying 3 to 5% or whatever the rate is versus 19. That's going to help you out a ton.
100%. And that's
why
why
20 years to pay it back.
We really focus on that philosophy of that debt snowball, which is it takes all your credit cards and it literally says, start tackling everything So pay your minimum balances, but start tackling your lowest balance first.
Yeah.
And the whole aspect of that is, well, why would I go after my highest interest rate? Well, that might be the one you have the most money on.
Right.
And this allows you, because we're all creatures of habit.
Yeah.
Once you get that paid off, you're like, oh, success.
Yeah,
I want to do it
totally.
again.
Yeah.
Right. So it's more in humans' behavior to say, I want to see you get wins. It's just like us in business, right? If you don't see any wins, you're just like, this is Groundhog's Day. What is happening? So it's similar in that on how we counsel individuals of going to that. Because we have a lot of people come to us, I want to afford a home, but what do I need to do to get there? It's either a credit repair journey or other things. So again, it doesn't just have to be, let's see, the biggest mistake most people make is they come right when they're ready. Well, usually you make compromise decisions, right? If I'm going to go buy a car on a lot and I haven't really done my research or done anything, you think you're doing good. So we encourage them on the mortgage side as well to do something similar and just kind of get prepared. And you don't always have to do it. And if the mortgage guy you're talking to views you as a waste of time and doesn't give you that, then you probably got the wrong individual.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple of questions I have, and these might be silly, but so when someone comes in and you go through all the paperwork, you're trying to figure out their debt to income ratio, their credit score, all these different variables at play. Yeah. From that point, from your company, do you have a couple different rates you can offer? Are there different options or because I'm guessing you are working with other partners that you can shop the rates kind of and see. So how does that process work?
That's what was the big thing and why I started the company was everyone's like, well, what platform are you? Are you a credit union? Are you a bank? Are you a correspondent? Are you a broker? And everyone's got their stigma on it.
Right.
And it's like,
buzzwords, you're like, I don't know.
The biggest thing is especially in markets like this, are you able, because your scenario versus another person's scenario versus an individual that has 780 score or a person that's got 500 or a person that's got no credit score. Not every investor, just like your business doesn't feed every business that's out there, right? Everybody has their specialties.
Yeah.
So to think that one organization can serve all them to the level of excellence, that's mistaken. Right. So the way you started this organization is, and we can have warehouse lines and do all that, but right now that just creates greed. That just creates more money.
Totally.
And that's why you see a lot of people flooding from that. So I'm a mortgage broker, which allows us to shop those investors. And I've been on every single side of it. I've received loans from a mortgage broker. I've served mortgage brokers. I've worked at a correspondent side, and I've actually helped a lot of credit unions and banks form their mortgage departments, right? So we shop for that. So we find your scenario and then we go set up, and everyone's like, well, everybody can do that. Well, honestly, I'm taking all my experience in creating relationships, because we are a younger company, that I can get because I've worked with them, I understand them, and have net worth that we need to get the relationships that others don't have access to. And so by doing that, we actually can get them the best deal. And I say that because we can shop and understand what they want rather than just spew out that. And then we give them options.
Yeah.
And we use a system that's called a mortgage coach, which shows transparently what all their data is. So if they do have a quote from somebody else, bring it in. I want to show you exactly where it is.
Right.
So there's no hidden fees. There's nothing there. I want you to see that because everybody does it differently. Our industry, you can get a 20-hour license and go get your, be a mortgage guy or gal. And, you need that experience to say, here's what it is and here's what it transparently looks like. So I love solving a piece of the puzzle. And I view everybody's scenario as something we can solve. And I'm out, trying to find out whatever that is, because there's certain investors that are phenomenal for low credit score because that's the bucket they want. There's certain that are just for jumbo. There's certain that are in these other categories and, even those appetites. So I like solving that Rubik's Cube by finding them the best option. I mean, there's some that we can even go down and get you the exact rate that'll help you qualify to that. So we can type it in exactly to say, which may not be a 6%, a 5.5. It might be like a 5.876 or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And so that is just solving problems.
Right.
And, and for individuals out there asking what rates are, I locked somebody last night at 5.875. That's not a bad interest rate.
That's where it should be, honestly.
And so that was unique to that scenario. And I need to probably quote APR with it, but that was what worked for them. And that's what they needed. And that made sense, right? And that with their strategies and everything. And they actually got some money back on that one. So, because they needed help with the closing costs. So yeah, I would say when you have these stigmas about platform or that, I'd say, honestly, it's more the individual that drives it than it is even the platform. because you can have good people at those other platforms, but it is always important to at least making sure you're working with somebody that you trust and actually is transparently showing you that. If they're just emailing you that, they're texting you, this happens. I even had one the other day where this individual got accepted offer, and she got approved with somebody that on a program that doesn't exist. And I just was like, you know what? The challenge for me with that is not that we couldn't find it. We sourced it, but that program, I know exactly what it was, is no longer here as of 30 days ago. So, and everybody's in a rush and everybody wants to find good in people, but it's also, I don't think it was even done maybe malicious, but I just think that it takes experience. It takes somebody being an advocate for you, rather than somebody you just feel like you're kind of trying to pull the wool over. And I think that's where you got to really just make sure you're aligned with somebody that is looking out for your best interest.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's an interesting like cultural change going on, because there's a lot more of these companies that are taking that approach and trying to find, a better suited value for clients. Like my neighbor across the street, he just opened up a Goosehead Insurance.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you can shop across all these different platforms, and it's a lot different than just saying that's your rate and then go through the whole process with somebody else and that's your, so I think that's pretty cool.
I'm actually using him to help us with some stuff at Goosehead. And because we're actually rolling out, as we mentioned earlier, first responders are a big part of what we focus on.
Yeah.
And there's two advocates. One is there's actually a bill called the Helper Act, which is helping every local protector, educator, and individual like that, teacher as well, have similar benefits as a veteran would. So, because a veteran can walk in and they're well deserving, get 100% financing because of their credentials.
Right.
Where an individual in the police force has to put usually 20% down, and they're getting pushed out of the markets. So, a good friend of mine helped pioneer it. That I worked together in the past, and it's actually got more bipartisan support than anybody, where they'd have similar benefits with that. So until that actually gets passed, which we know how the government is, and now an election cycle, that's going to be kind of back shelved on everything. But we're opening a Heroes Appreciation Program. And that really focuses on the same categories of individuals, of the first responder, teachers, and all those community, have not only a good deal from us and the real estate agent chipping in. We're also both going to contribute something to a charitable cause of their choice, but we're also trying to put together some like accidental death and insurance for them. So if they get hurt in the line of field, I mean, heck, even teachers have to worry about that today, right?
Totally.
That will actually have some things. So this is bigger than just getting a few bucks off your loan.
Yeah.
Not only will you get hopefully a company that shows you that they care more than just about the loan, but we're going to do some insurance things that actually help set up your family for life. So again, it's a little more of a holistic approach.
Yeah.
But those are some things that that for those individuals out there, you do have advocates for you.
Yeah.
You do have people that actually care beyond just the transaction and helping you. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's another thing I haven't really thought about that. I mean, I'm assuming it's because, like veterans are under the government, right?
Yeah.
And then police and fire are under like local city governments, and they're not naturally going to have the infrastructure and the funds to give them benefits as a natural way to support them. So that is interesting.
So that's why we kind of are trying to do it for the mortgage side, but then we're also trying to help through setting up the foundation side to help them look at that long term, what that looks like from a holistic, because, they're protectors of our families. They're protectors of our kids. They're protectors of our health if they're nurses. All of those individuals, I mean, they were the essential worker during COVID, right?
Yeah.
And if they're getting pushed out of areas that they can't even afford, the home ownership is a big cause of that. I mean, renters versus homeowners and when you're at an employer, they're more likely to leave when they're renting versus setting up roots. So it affects more than just, hey, I hope you get a mortgage, and just driving that. It affects their whole life and their families.
Well, and like, let's protect the people that are protecting us.
100%.
Otherwise you're going to have people that are disgruntled, and like, that's not good either.
100%.
Right? That's going to blow up on the news for, it's just like,
And you see so many things of people taking advantage of them and others. So it's, it's sad that actually happens, but again, there are good people out there.
Yeah. Well, that's great, man. That's awesome work. I need to get you connected with a realtor that she lives in Puyallup, but her husband's a firefighter, and she is really focused on helping firefighters and police force locally as well. So that'd be a good olive branch in case you guys have mutual connections or whatever. But that's It's a lot to think about, man.
It's a lot of stuff, man. And it's just kind of each action drives you to realize that there's an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I love is just there's an opportunity. Like this is an opportunity, and that's also why I love owning my own company because we can do it.
Yeah.
We decide it, we implement it, we do it. Where others they are voicing opinions and they don't get heard, and then it takes on a different shape of intent, right? It kind of gets diluted, and you're like, it kind of missed the whole point of why we even wanted to do this in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because it's turned into, we'll get more loans from it. Like,
Right.
no, like this should actually be there to benefit people and do the opposite. So,
yeah, I used to have that mentality too. Like, I mean, I still do, but I would have, my first sales job was selling shoes at Nordstrom, right?
Yeah.
And I would watch, that was my first sales job ever, basically. And I was walking around looking at these guys, and they had different tactics and ways, and some people would just totally be sharks. And I always had the mentality of like, if I sit down with someone and they don't buy something today, that's okay. Cause I created an experience. They'll bring 3 people back.
yep.
And, I'm not going to try to push you into a shoe that doesn't fit because I don't have the size you want, or, do some sketchy stuff like, oh, these are Italian leather and they'll stretch out. Like, no, this doesn't fit.
Totally.
So I always had that mentality, and I was successful pretty early because I took the time to care about the customer and treat people like you're supposed to be treated.
Yeah.
And just create a good experience. Like tell people, your intentions and break down those walls early and ask permission to ask questions and be a partner, and tell them your intention why is because I care about this. It's not because I am trying to get you to tell me more things I can sell you,
I want you to buy 10 pairs of shoes, not one. Right?
Yeah.
I actually want to what's the selfish intent about it? Because I want you to buy more down the road. I mean, that's the goal, right? Rather than just a transaction. And I think too many people in customer service, in sales in general, are so focused on, I get this in our industry all the time. I've worked, I've managed hundreds of salespeople, and they're like, well, I did such a good job. Why didn't they come back to me? I'm like, the arrogance to think you did such a good job that they'll just come back to you 5 years later and remember you, and you've done nothing to help them since then.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, we get peppered all the time. They're getting bombarded with stuff in their face. And usually they're not like, you know what, I need to refinance. They usually saw something. They usually had something there, right? Yeah. Or to buy a home. There's something that caused that action.
Right.
So I'm like, we have to stay in touch. We have to do what's right. We have to ask them about, is your family growing? Do you need something? Like there have to be intent if you truly care.
That is huge. That is huge. I do that a lot. I mean, if I do my job right, I know something about you more than what house you're selling or whatever. And then I can follow up and just check in with people and I know when your birthday is or whatever. Like I drove by a house the other day, and I drive that same route all the time on the way to Lake Oswego. And I noticed that one of the houses that we shot, the sign was gone. So I texted her and I said, hey, looks like that one moved. That's great. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Someone else got hired and blah, blah, blah. But it just, I care enough, and that is demonstrated. And even though it wasn't the perfect scenario, she was like, thank you so much for checking 100%. In with me. I'm like, I see this all the time. I'm interested in, like, I want to know how you're doing. Cause
so true.
I don't want to, and that gives me the ability to be a better partner, and they respect what I say, and we can have a more, we can consult her on how to showcase homes versus just order taking, because I've done these things that make a difference.
Yeah.
And that's always been my mentality. Like I'm going to be better and bigger than what the average person in this industry looks like.
Absolutely.
And we can, because we care. Otherwise you can't. So,
a couple of my core convictions are, be fierce, be accountable, and be genuine. Mm-hmm. And fierce doesn't mean to go be a jerk to people. It just means to have absolute resilience and the strive for persistence and continuation. Accountable, that I'm accountable in my actions. Like I'm not going to place blame on others. I'm not going to put that on others. And like you just mentioned, be genuine. I have so many guys coming in like, you called them on like their birthday. You did that. Like, yeah, because I actually do care.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what do I do? Well, you got to actually start by being genuine. You actually do have to care.
Right.
But also on the flip side, you're reaching out to individuals trying to get new business or clients with that. Like, would you want to be contacted in that way? Oh, no. Then why are you doing that to them? Right. So just do unto others like you want to have done unto you, and do what's right.
Do the right thing.
And you realize that it does take time. It's a long play. But, my family's taken care of. Everything is good based upon how we've done our life. So it's a harder path, because, you couldn't take the easy path. You can win tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then you just won't win the following day, but that's just kind of what it looks like. And I know we've talked about that philosophy on this multiple times, but it's true, and I'm passionate by it because I live it, and my actions, breed that. And I want others to feel that, because that's my goal, is to make people better.
Yeah. And we're all human. I mean, I hate making mistakes. Everybody does, but
That's real.
the type of volume we're doing right now, it's impossible not to have something go wrong and like
Right.
be accountable for it.
Right.
As long as it doesn't happen all the time, you're fine.
Absolutely.
But call those people and have a human connection with them
That's
right
what I'm
away.
saying.
You know, like, yeah.
Well, it's like we've talked too. It's like, we're going through stuff together, right?
Yeah.
And we also know that through our partnership of what we're kind of creating together, that we're going to stumble and fail. But if we know that and we're honest by it, rather than placing blame on it, we know that we're going to use these items to make it better and continue to do that. And I find most people, if you're honest with a customer, like, hey, this is what happened. I want you to know.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing to fix it. This is what we're going to have happen next. And we're not going to make that like, okay, bring them a part of the journey rather than not talking to them and distance yourself when those moments come. Like it's actually when you bring people a part of it, you understand everybody is imperfect. Like everybody is.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just a matter of kind of walking through that journey together and inviting people to come in.
Yeah. I mean, we had a scheduling issue this week because I didn't see a shoot that was in our old system. And then I got a call and she's like, hey, are you guys still coming? And I'm like, I thought I was going to throw up for a second.
Right.
So we made it an hour and a half late and I just comped the shoot. I said, screw it. It's the right thing to do. And they know that I don't do that all the time.
Right.
It's not like a repetitive problem, but like own it.
Yeah.
Be accountable for it. And that's the best you can do. People respect that. We're all human. Like
we all are.
I mean, I can't control if my battery dies or something happens that, I can control it in the future, but I can't control it today.
And you don't honestly know. I've learned this through life lessons. You don't know the true character of a person until they're in moments like that.
Yeah.
Because, it's like, that won't matter. The comp, well, you should have done more. Well, I can't change the past.
Yeah.
I can only do what I feel is
what
right.
we're working with. This is what I did for you. And this is how I'm going to solve it.
That's a big part of my thing is, God didn't create me to make the right decision all the time. He told me to understand it and then make the next right one. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just a true belief, but you are tested in that. And individuals you do hold close sometimes, they get in that moment and you know what? You kind of learn the true colors.
Yeah.
You kind of learn that true character really kind of comes out with what people do in the dark. I mean, it's just the reality, but you don't know that until you have life experiences. It doesn't mean you be jaded on the next person.
Right.
It's just life.
Yeah, I mean, if it was easy, it's not worth it, and you have to fail to learn. Otherwise, it's not failure. It's like just a lesson that you had to go through. Otherwise, life's too easy. It's not fun. Like it's not gonna be fun if it's just like home runs all the time, and you just
this is boring.
If I made every putt, I wouldn't go golfing anymore.
Yeah.
So I one last thing I want to talk about before we wrap up here is because you're in an interesting industry with a lot of things going on that you can't control, right?
Yeah.
How do you look at your performance and your goal setting? Like that's got to be tough, right?
It's not easy. Yeah. I mean,
some of these things are intangible. Like
some of it's intangible, but there's more than you can control than you realize.
Yeah.
And I always we meet with our team constantly. Like some of my goals from our business this year is capture market share.
Yeah.
Understand where you're at to capture market share, bring on good people. Mm-hmm. And we're growing the right way. We lend in multiple states throughout the Northwest and actually the West Coast. And we brought on individuals, but there are similar minded and we've worked with experience and they understand. I'm in a constant state of disrupting.
Right.
And what I mean by that is it truly is an industry of a lot of people utilize the best they know how, not the best that can be done. And we have to change that mindset. So even next week, I'm meeting with my leadership team and we're going through how can we continually improve better? Like we're excelling, but I know that we have to stress test what's going to happen. We have to go through everything. We have to brace in if it does happen because we were all high and mighty for a few years, right? But now everybody has, when you take off time, you got to go run a marathon tomorrow, but you're not fit to. It ain't going to happen.
Right.
And so we're constantly evolving what those goals are. But the most important thing for goals for me is to make sure that every one of my team members' families are fed.
Yeah.
And I sit around the room and we constantly adjust our production goals to meet that.
Right.
And then we constantly challenge ourselves of saying, instead of replicating when we get busy, we're going to hire somebody that might take from us.
Right.
Right. So it doesn't mean don't hire, don't expand, don't grow when we need to, but what are all the ways? Have we set up the foundation to say, these are our markers for us to hit to make sure? Because if we go hire that, because that's just what we know to do.
Yeah.
That might not be the best because now there's tools. I can outsource processing and back end things that the client never sees.
Yeah.
Not overseas, but locally and around here to actually do that. And then to elevate my people to be in a different position. But we are creatures of habit and we just kind of keep doing it. And then we get burdened by it and we just get stuck. So we're really honestly actively kind of looking at in the back end to continually to serve our customers as quickly, as timely, as accurately as we can. But also more importantly, all my goals right now are for my team and making sure their families are fed. And if we're not accomplishing that, if we're not doing absolutely everything we can possibly, because most people are afraid to put down what they're not doing. And I'm like, that's the data we want, because that's our opportunity to do more. Because again, like we talked, if we're doing everything and we're not yielding the result, that's the problem.
Right.
That's usually 99.9% of the time. It's not the problem. So I would say that's kind of our goals, is we want to clearly define our message. That's why bringing you and your team on to clearly showcase to the community who we are, to differentiate ourselves by just telling our truth and our experiences, because my scars are different than yours, but they're mine. And letting our people know that we do care for them. We do care about that, because these guys have been on this journey with me in different shapes and forms, a lot of them, some new. And, you know, it's just important to make sure that we're protectors of their family and we're serving people right. And we're not going to cut corners. We're not going to do it wrong. But I truly believe that we can offer a better product, a better execution on everything. When I get in a room with somebody, I'm confident that I can serve them better or affirm that they're being served well.
Yeah.
And so I mean, so our goals are always evolving. And when we are having downtime, because this market's like you're either slam busy or you're like crickets and you can go play 36 holes of golf.
Yeah.
And we're using those moments when we should go play golf to constantly improve our processes.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, when you have a disaster. Well, if I had a plan, I would do well. But people don't want to write a plan in the middle of a disaster.
Yeah.
Because I just got to live, right? So we try to write those plans now.
Yeah.
So if a disaster or if the tsunami comes, we are handling it. And that is, we take it off the shelf and are constantly evolving it.
Right.
So that's some of the stuff just from experiences of what I've seen. I'm very big about, I've seen a situation happen. We don't replicate it. We go this way. And I'm an observer by nature, I think being the youngest, right? And I was always the one kind of observing what everybody was doing. And I feel like that's what I do with business too.
Yeah. No, and that's so important too, because let's say, what if you want to go on vacation?
Absolutely.
And nobody knows how to do something? Well, because you had all this downtime you didn't utilize to like teach people things that help the entire team to grow together. And if, you know, if something happened to you, how if someone walked into the business, how do they know how to operate it?
100%.
Right? And we deal with that a lot too. I mean, it's really hard because you're in the business so much. It's hard to look at the business, but you have to be really diligent about that and take the time to have nothing on the schedule that day. You can just sit down, you know, and then doing those little things that make a big difference consistently.
Yeah.
I used to do that in retail too. I managed these retail stores, and if it was dead, I'd be like, okay, well, how many, I'd have like stupid contests. I'd be like, hey, how many high fives think you can get today? And I would run those little contests so that I'm rewarding the right behavior. Right. Because it's hard to high five someone you don't like, right? So if a customer 100%. Comes in and you get a high five, then we're making happy customers all day. Exactly. We're taking advantage of what we have in front of us, and we're doing what we can handle and manage. We're like controlling our controllables. Otherwise, 100%. What am I going to do? Like make people go out in the mall and you know, sandwich boards or whatever? Like, sure, maybe, but if every person that walks into my business today or I interact with gets a high five, then that's cool. And that's rewarding the right experiences.
Exactly.
That I want,
that's the culture, and that's what you're creating. And I think that's critically important, and also for those individuals to have those short-term wins and to feel that, because it's the same in our business. You know, we have a lot of people that are either viewing this as an opportunistic market or viewing this as, I need to get out of it. Like I can't hang on anymore. Right. And it's not. But those that are resilient, those that are continuing to do the best, are going to be the ones that are, you know, like winning. They're the ones that are thriving, and they're the ones that are there. And I think that if we can show them that, but it's hard right now. You're tilling the ground, hoping that it's going to harvest. Yeah. And it's hard. It's not like it comes in and close your loan in 30 days and you're winning and the next one's there. Like, so filling your time with something is exactly what you're mentioning, is like, and focusing on that culture is important. And also to realize that how we perceive ourselves and how we come across is how others look at it. You know, if we're negative in this, they're going to feel that. They're going to feel that too, and have a lack of confidence.
All right. We're all set, man. Thank you so much for coming out today. Really appreciate your time and great conversation. People can find you in downtown Lake Oswego or on social media, and we'll be getting some more social media out there for you too. So,
thanks, Tony. Mosaic Studios, one of the best, guys.
Thanks.